Hey, this is Dan from True North Motos. Today we are going to be doing some filming on a 2021 KTM 450 XCF that we are building into a lightweight dual sport and also a race bike. So this bike will be used for street use. It's going to be using a bunch of our products as well as some from other companies that we sell. Alright, so this is the components for a XCF Option 2 harness, and we're going to do an install video on this. This one will come with everything to install turn signals as well. You can also order the kit without turn signals. The only thing you do not see up here is the XCW rear fender, under fender, tail light, and then headlight mask and the headlight you choose to install on the bike. So we'll cover that separately. To go over the components, this is the True North Motos relayed harness. This is the same relay that the factory uses for KTM. This is your trigger wire for the relay to turn it on. When this loses power and the bike turns off, you will not have a parasitic draw. So let me lay this out. You can kind of see it. So integrated into the harness is a tail light plug that also brings power to your turn signal switch and gives you a brake light function. This goes to your brake pressure switch on the rear. We only use them on the rear in our kits, not on the front. Hookups for your battery, inline 20 amp fuse, the relay which we talked about, plug for your OBD2 sensor. This runs up to the front of your bike. This is auxiliary power to power a USB charger, dash, other things that you would want to power off your bike. These red and yellow wires with the female spade connectors are for your horn. This is your plug-in for your multifunction switch. And this is your headlight plug that gives you ground, running light, low beam, and high beam. This is a factory KTM 500 EXC turn signal harness. This is also going to get ran up the frame. So, in the same fashion, starting from the back, this is going to plug into your TNM harness, and this is going to plug into your tail light. These are your turn signal wires. Red is not right. Red goes to your left signal. Green goes to your right signal. This is a running light, this is a license plate plug that we do not use on our kits. So we'll just tuck that into the underfender when we install it. This will run up to the frame to the front. This is your flasher relay plug. Again, red is not right, left signal. Green is right signal. This installs to the multifunction switch, the turn signal portion. This is an indicator bulb for your turn signals. When you're running LEDs, we usually do not use these. If the connections on the inside make contact, all four blinkers will blink at once. I leave these on here in case people want to use them with OEM signals, or there is a kit available to where you can still do an indicator light when you're running LED lights. On my bikes, I cut them off and heat shrink the end of this and don't use them at all. Tail light we're going to use on this bike is a TacoMotoCo version 2 tail tidy. This has a license plate light, brake light, running light, and your turn signals all integrated into one. You'll see on the back they put an arrow on which side goes up, and they're labeled for your turn signals. That's your new taillight plug. For this bike we chose to run our hand shield turn signals. We will be drilling a 7/16 hole in the hand guards and these flush mount into them. Both these and these are 100% lifetime warranty. If you break them, we will replace them for free. You just pay shipping. This is only for the original purchaser with proof of purchase. Horn. This is your kill switch jumper wire. When you remove your factory kill switch, it will tee between the yellow and black wire on your multifunction switch Both the CEV, which we're using on this bike, and the Euro Switch have this. And the plug on your frame where your factory kill switch came off. Next is your rear brake pressure switch. This is a CEV multifunction switch. So you have off, low, high, kill switch, horn, the adapter piece, and your lower portion of the switch, the turn signal function. Hardware included to mount the switch to the bars. And last piece of this kit is your flasher relay. This is one for LED signals. It'll look different if you go with OEM signals. So we're going to start the install of our option 2 relay harness. This harness will work on XC, XEF, SXF bikes. Same type of models for the Husqvarna and the Gas would be TX, FX, FC, Gas EX bikes, and MC bikes. So obviously we got all the plastic stripped off, ready to do the installation on the kit. That's going to be covered in another video. First thing we're going to do is remove other things that we don't need on this bike, starting with our factory kill switch. So Phillips screwdriver, get your snips, switch off. These things will just fall out, so I like to take them off there so I don't lose them. I need an 8mm. I'm going to come around to the other side of the bike. Right here is your ground. So put that bolt down and do your clip here. Pull your kill switch through and do the lower clip. Some bikes have this, some don't, depending on your model. Remember that washer I said don't lose? Just fell right there, so we'll use the magnet and grab it. I'm going to feed this harness out of here. And then it will show you this bullet connector for your kill switch. If I can get to it. There, that's your kill switch off of the bike now. That washer I was talking about, set that aside, put that in your spare parts bag. Now we're going to put our ground back on. You will not have a ground on the new kill switch wire because it is grounded at the actual switch up top with our harness. So put that back in. And you can grab your kill switch jumper wire, plug that guy in. Back here, and we'll route this wire inside this clip. It's going to be kind of hard to see this. I'm just going to pull this harness out, get it behind there, and tuck the harness back in. And put that back up. We'll leave this clip undone right now because your other harness is going to run up here as well. We'll feed that to the front with the switch wire and it's going to come out. So you'll have some extra to play with here. Determine how long you need it and then just feed the extra underneath your coil down here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and grab our option 2 relay harness from True North Motos and do an install. It's going to be towards the front of the bike. Your relay and everything is going to go towards the back of the bike. So I like to start at the back. On the XCW models, you'll have a post for this relay to slide onto. On XCF and SX models, you do not. I usually hide them in the air box down here. So we're going to go ahead and start routing this harness. Kind of get some stuff out of the way and get ready to slide our connectors up here. This can be pretty tight, so take your time. Don't force stuff through and unplug stuff. The 6-pin connector is probably the hardest to get through. Let's see, best way for this to come up. Okay, so we got the 6-pin through. Now we're going to feed up these relayed power, accessory power. These are the dual female bullets. Next to come up is going to be your headlight plug. Now we got most of it through, and finally your horn wires. So now that you've done that, you can feed your harness up, and we'll kind of leave it dangling right there. And we'll get ready to install everything else. Another one that's going to need to come up and through is the 2-pin connector for your brake pressure switch. So we'll follow the path we took for the rest of the harness and bring that guy up. Pop your ECU off. This guy's going to go under the ECU and drop down here. If you come to this side of the bike, this is your diagnostic plug. People call it the OBD2 plug. There's another plug that is the exact same as this. It's located on this bike right down here. The way they tell the two apart, this one has 6 wires going into the back of it. The yellow wire on this is going to go to the orange wire on this plug. This harness will not work if you plug it into this one. That's your rollover sensor to kill the engine when the bike's upside down and you can't get to the stop button. So this guy is just going to plug in like that until you hear a click. Going to need to feed your positive and negative cables up to get to your battery. Get your fuse up there as well. So now we got everything routed up where we want to be. Negative's going to go right there, positive right there. We'll leave your fuse tucked down in here. You can see on this side what we're left with is your relay, which on this model I tend to go like that and put a zip tie around your subframe right there. And this is going to be your tail light plug. Going up to the front of this harness, we're going to route it along with your other harnesses right in here. You can use some zip ties to secure everything. And we're going to take the front and start routing it through. So between the frame and your throttle body, again, these can be tight, so take your time. Don't yank on the wires or anything. Don't want to break anything while you're doing this. Start with your 6-pin switch connector, followed by your headlight plug and your accessory power, and then your horn wires will follow through. Get a kink in your harness, just work the kink while you're doing it so you don't actually kink the wires. Now we're going to unplug these straps that hold the wiring in place. Bring your harness up, tuck it in behind your mask. There is some extra room on these depending on the model that you have and what you want to do. Just figure out how much wire you're going to need. That'll be obvious once you start hooking up other components. Do it. Next step is going to be your KTM 500 turn signal harness. This is a factory harness that we use. These are all the wires in the front. And this one, I find it easier to feed the wires from the top down. Same thing as I said before, take your time. Don't yank on wires and break stuff while you're doing this. So we got those two plugs down. These are your taillight plug, power to the turn signal harness. The other thing you're going to need to pull through is your turn signal connectors. Once that's through, just feed those down, like so. So now we have everything fed through that hole. That's probably the hardest part of installing this harness, is getting everything through there. The orientation for this, we're going to run these turn signal wires behind the subframe, back up, leave those hanging by the back wheel. Male plug plugs into the female plug of the turn signal harness. Make sure that you're out of the way. We're plugged in there. This is now going to be your taillight plug. On these wires, you can see there's a nice little clip right here on the side of your battery box. So if you run these right, you can tuck all these wires into this clip behind there, keeping them out of the way. And if you got room for the extra wire there, you can feed that down. I'll tuck one real quick. Feed that in, and then tuck those both back on top of it. With your side number plate on, you will not be able to see any of this wiring once it's on there. And we'll go ahead, once we put our tail light on, we will zip tie our relay right there and out of the way. So, hold on one second. And we ran our relay harness up. It's going to go in here and we'll secure it with some zip ties. And run everything for the front turn signal harness through the same zone. So, start feeding components through. I know I sound like a broken record. Don't pull on the wires. Just feed through and grab the connectors. It's important to find your path of least resistance when you're doing this. Okay, got that all through there. We'll hold this so it doesn't kink, and we'll feed our turn signal wire along with the rest. Now this is also going to come right up to the side of the frame and sit right there. So those are the big hardest parts of this job to install, is feeding all those connectors through the tight spots along the frame and in the airbox. A new product is going to be available on our website very soon. This will let you put a KTM OEM instrument cluster on a XE SXF bike. This kit will work for 20 plus models, and it is plug and play. So we'll go over the components. Obviously, this is your speedometer, odometer, all that stuff, does lap times. We use the KTM one because we found that the Husky ones leak and get condensation behind the screen fairly often. So whether I put it on a Husqvarna, a gas, or a KTM, I always use the KTM one. This is your mount for the speedometer. This is your speedo pickup cable. This is our power harness for the speedometer that'll plug into any 2020 plus bike that is fuel injected from the factory. So we'll go over this install real quick. Tools needed: T20 Torx and an 8mm. Also a little eyeglasses, flathead screwdriver or pick or something like that to work with connectors is good to have as well. So taking the little pick, we're going to disconnect the speedo sensor, push that tab down, pull the connector out. Now we're ready to start installing. So this is going to mount right there. So you're going to want to face the speedometer the correct way. KTM logo facing the clip. Going to push that in. There we go. Speedo's in there. You're going to take these little Torx bolts. Those go into the bottom. Again, these are plastic threads, so do not overdo them. This bike will have two lamps here because it's a 4-stroke. The XE 2-stroke TPI bike will have an oil tank indicator light as well. What we're going to do is remove this bolt. Alright, now that we got that bolt out, I'm going to pop these wires out of here. Just make a note of which wires go to what. So on this model, black wires go to your FI light. Pull in the black housings, get those out. There's not a bulb in my low fuel light anyways, so I'll replace that. Can take some force to get these out sometimes, but push these out of this. And then undo this connector. Clip holding this in, decompress that, we'll get rid of that altogether. Now that we have these, take your fuel light one. These are pretty difficult to press in. You can use the corner of your table or something like that. Press that in. Same thing. Get it started. Corner of the table. Press it in. Now your lights are relocated into the new plastic holder. So,
try to do that the correct way.
now you're going to take your bolts, put a dab of medium strength Loctite on them, and we're going to run these, get your cable out of the way, and get it lined up. Get that guy snug. reason I like Loctite, these are just a rubber mount, so you want the bolts to stay in. Now you got your dash mounted. Take these guys, get yourself some more room. FI light was the black one, fuel light was that one. And we'll just secure that up there. Now your lights are relocated, you got your speedo mounted. So this is the power harness for when your bike's running to bring power to your speedometer. It does have an internal battery, so you will be able to turn it on and set functions while the bike is off. If you cannot do that, the battery in your speedometer has gone bad and you need to replace it. This plug is behind every FI 2020 Plus bike. So our adapter harness simply plugs in there. Then on this harness, off the speedo, you find the female 3-position with the red, brown, and black wires. Plug it in there. We'll leave that there for a moment. Next step, you're going to want to grab your sensor, the pickup for the magnet, and your rotor. The magnet for the rotor will come in the kit. This bike already had one installed because we were running our Bulletproof Designs wheel set on it. Put a dab of Loctite on there. This is going to be an 8mm wrench. If you look right there is where this goes into. So we'll just start it in there, thread it in. It's pretty tight if you have a wheel on there. Doesn't need a big torque. Snug. You have your pickup, your magnets right here. Every aftermarket brand rotor and OEM rotors should have the spot for the magnet on them. There's a little circlip on the back that you just put this through, put your circlip on, and it's installed. This is a Dirt Tricks rotor, just for reference. Next part we're going to grab is your speed sensor cable. An OEM part from KTM. Take the male end, 2-pin connector, plug it into the female end, like so. This will route up here and zip tie up, come down inside of your fork leg, and this will plug in right here. So put a couple bends in your zip tie and snake it around the fork lug. And what we're going to do is go around this connector. Get it started. And this will tuck up into there. Like so. And that'll just keep it out of the way when you're riding, not get ripped off. Take some snips, cut off your extra. All this will get secured with your fork guard and come up and have the fork cable guides which come in your kit. So we'll get one of those on there. This is what it looks like. Snap on one end, like so. Without the fork out off, it's kind of hard to tell, but get them so they're the same length. You'll have two in the kit. Now the cables will be sticking together in uniform. This is going to be taller than your standard XC cable by quite a bit, just because these are not as long as an XCW EXC cable. So this one will get routed behind your number plate or your headlight mask. This one will be a little bit taller up here. So now we're installed the speedometer kit. I can't turn the bike on and show you right now because we got the tank and everything off, but when the bike starts, it'll be illuminated and turn on. Also, it'll do the same thing if you move the bike and the speedo picks up. So you have all the functions of it. Very simple install, plug and play. So if you're not a full wraparound handguard guy, scared of breaking your wrists, best flags on the market are the Burley ones from SXS. Dudes out of Idaho, great customer service, made in the USA. Highly recommend them. They do not bend nearly as much as other flags. If you actually do hit stuff, it usually doesn't come into your hand. Great protection for a non-wraparound. Put the switch over. We'll leave all this stuff loose, so we make sure that we got enough room for the handguard, the master cylinder, and your new multifunction switch. So I'm going to remove this bottom mount. If you didn't add turn signals to the Option 2 harness, this is what you would mount to the handlebar to hold your switch. If you're doing turn signals, you'll need to mount the adapter and lower switch to the upper portion. On the CEV switch, there is no adapter. It just bolts right to, or excuse me, on the Euro switch, there is no adapter. It just bolts right to it. So you can see how these have a spot for this nut to recess into it, like so. Like that. And then, so like I was saying earlier, there's not a ton of room there. We're going to move stuff down. This will all depend how much room you need by what you have for handguards, what you got on here already. That's why getting rid of the factory kill switch is nice to free up some real estate on your bars. Now I mount this so the kill switch and horde button are facing the rider and your headlight control is facing away. You want to make sure these arrows are facing towards you. Put the lower part of the switch in there, it'll kind of clamp on there, and then the longer flat head screws will go up. Don't tighten the first one all the way down until you get the second one started. So if you angle the switch a little bit forward, it makes it easier to use while you are riding. You're about halfway done with this now. You're going to take two Phillips screws that came out of the other mount. The switch, there's a little indent for the wiring right there to run out. I like to take the sheathing, pull it down a little bit, get it down inside there so you're not directly on the wires. And we're gonna route the wire in one out of the way. Get your bolt in and thread it on. Those captured nuts are what is holding these Phillips in here in the lower part of the switch to the adapter.
You move that harness. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, switch is mounted. When we finalize routing everything, we'll pull these tight and zip tie to your master cylinder around here. So we'll take all these wires now, kind of get them snug. Tuck them up and behind between the handlebar and the master cylinder. Now they're all tied out of the way. Now you got map switch and traction control moved over out of the way. I'm not constantly hitting this on the fly. It's something I don't change very often, so it's easier to have it over here. Kill switch horn, left right turn signal, off, low, and high for your multifunction switch. So now we can hook up our switch and start getting stuff organized behind the headlight mask. So this is the TNM harness. This guy is going to plug in to the upper part of the switch. Like so. This is your kill switch wire, which we should have coming through right here. Most of this stuff's probably going to be zip tied and up out of the way up here. Headlight plug, obviously when you put your headlight on. Auxiliary power. This is your turn signal harness coming in. So this one, route it into your new cable guide, clip it on, and we can plug the lower part of your switch in. Like I said, when we do this, we'll secure all this stuff up and out of the way of the headlight. For now, we're going to leave it there. Next step up front is we're going to mount the flasher relay. There's different options on this. Most of the time, I just like to zip tie it up and out of the way in there. Grab a zip tie. Let's see which way that's gonna go. On bikes that don't have this mount, or if you're not using it, you can bolt it into here. Get it wherever you can, just out of the way. Just remember that your headlight's going to go down in here. So you kind of want to keep everything up and out of the way on this. So the relay is mounted. We'll get it plugged in to your turn signal harness. These are your horn wires. These guys are going to go down this side of the frame. Be over here when we mount the horn. This, I'll show you what I do on these. Like I said, I don't use these indicator sockets, and I don't, when they contact, all 4 blinkers flash. So what I do is I pull the sheathing back a little bit, snip them off, and either tape or heat shrink over that. That way you don't ever have to worry about them. In your kit, you're going to get 2 turn signals, 2 rubber boots, and 2 zip ties. You need a 7/16 drill bit to get the correct size holes for these. They will mount virtually to any surface. We put them in our hand shields, that's what they're sold as, but you can use them wherever you'd like. Find a flat surface. I'm going to put it right in here. And start with a smaller bit. Pilot hole going. If you got graphics or something you're going through, just use a little razor knife and get it clean. All right. Now we're going to take a signal, and we'll take this backing plate nut off, pull your wire through. Start that back on, and lock it in place. Now with that on, take your boot,
Focus.
yeah, no problem. Feed your connector through your boot. Can be kind of a pain. Sometimes I take a little screwdriver and just push on the back of the connector to get it started through there. Through. We'll run this up. And over. Yeah, it is. There we go. Your boot's secured there. And we'll run this back around and down. Go up to the other side and do the same thing. Now we got the turn signals installed. The wires ran down with the other wires on both sides. Your speedo sensors ran down there, tucked into the organizing clips. Find your turn signal harness and your connectors. So again, red is not right. This is your left signal. This is where your left signal comes down. We'll hook that up. And your right signal. Where your right signal comes down. Turn signals are in and ran. At this point, we can kind of clean up this wiring behind here, get stuff up and out of the way like we talked about earlier. So now we got stuff kind of up and out of the way. This all depends on the bike and what you got behind your headlight mask already. So just be mindful of that. And the only thing you kind of want to leave loose is your headlight plug. Now that everything's tied up behind this headlight mask, we're going to throw the front fender and the horn and the headlight on the bike. I want to thank Fusion Graphics for these killer graphics they did. We're also using a Motominded Baja Designs XL Pro kit on this bike. Already has the dimmer and everything wired behind the headlight. Simple plug. And then just route your speedo sensor and brake line. These ones I leave it behind the headlight mask because on the XC has a shorter brake line. So to run it up here, it'll just get in the way and get caught on things. We're going to put pins in. Strap on. And take a 12mm wrench. Go ahead and break your stock. Banjo bolt free. Move this out of the way. I'm going to do a little bit more material off of there. So on these we just reuse the copper washers, and I will show you a trick when we reinstall this. So we're going to take your brake pressure switch, take the copper washer off of the banjo bolt that you took out, install it on your switch. Run that through. Put your other copper washer on. Get it in place, and then you're going to want to make sure when you're starting this and tightening this that you spin the wire at the same time that you're tightening this down. These are pretty easy to route out of the way of the exhaust on the 2-stroke models. 4-stroke models are a little bit tighter at clearance. There's a couple different ways to do it. So now that we got that on there, I'm probably going to route this one on the outside right there, and have the frame guard guide it so you're well aware, or excuse me, well away from your header. So take a 14mm wrench, goes right over the connector, down, get it on there, get it close to snug, and then what we're going to do, so you don't have to bleed your system, is press down on your brake pedal until you see a tiny fluid come out like that. Snug that up. Let go of the pedal. Give it a final tighten. Hold your brake line so it doesn't go into your exhaust. And then you can just check your brake. Still have great pedal feel. And that is plugged in. The other route for this wire is to go down, bring it down here and zip tie it to that. Just puts strain on the wires in my mind, so I don't like doing that.
Try to move your hand and explain it again.
So the other route is to go down here and zip tie it to your brake line to follow it, but it puts some strain on these wires and I don't like to do that. So personally, I like to bring it back around and run it on the outside of your frame, and it'll come up and plug into. So when we put the frame guard back on, there'll be a zip tie holding this in place right here to keep it away from the exhaust. TacoMotoCo tail tidy. We're going to install this. This is going to be the all-in-one tail light, turn signals, brake light, license plate light. These are going to be your adapters that go in. The skinnier part just presses into your OEM underfender. Like so. And you will take the hardware for the adapters. Make sure that the arrow on the back of the light goes up. Feed that bolt all the way through. Same with the other side. It's a really tiny hardware. You're going to use a #1 Phillips. Kind of just make sure those are pushed through like so. I'll flip this over so you can kind of see the other side. You can see both these are ready. Again, really small hardware on these guys. So get your washers on. This is a 5.5mm for the nut. So I like to hold the bolt on like that, or nut on, excuse me, with my finger, and then just start it with your finger first till you get to the nylock portion. Hold it with your wrench. So I like to tighten it with the screwdriver till it starts to feel some tension, and then use the wrench to kind of finish it off. And all we're looking for here is for the bolt to get to the nylock. See, that's flush and started into the nylock portion. So we'll go ahead, grab the other nut, hold it on there the same way, start it by just holding it till it starts contacting the nylock portion of the nut. Grab your wrench. And finish it off Alright, those are on. Lights installed. Yes, I do know it looks like it's spaced way out, but this will be directly under your fender and be the perfect length. Again, these are lifetime warranty to the original purchaser, so if we break this, contact us, proof of receipt, which we will have you in our system. We will replace it for free. You just got to pay shipping to get to you. Now that we got that done, before we put this on the bike, we're going to go ahead and install the Motominded Flexplate. This is a brand new product from Motominded. Really nice system. Allows your plate to move and kind of bend, so if you wreck, it's not breaking your plate off or breaking the plastic. So we'll unbag this. They do come with good instructions as well. So, on the KTM Underfender, we come with two different rubber mounts. You want to use the one that has the wider of the two on this fender. What we're going to do is on this one, we're going to use a 7/32 drill bit. This hole, and this hole need to be drilled out. Now that we've got that done, you'll see this one you will have to stretch down to get it, but you can do that with this kit and it'll all line up to the pre-drilled marks. So there's two different length bolts here. The shorter ones versus are for the rubber piece to your actual sub fender. So what we're going to do is go ahead, grab all your shorter ones, get the washers on there. And I like to start them into the rubber housing. All this stuff has nylocks, so no need for Loctite here. These are a 3mm if I remember correctly. Yep. So we'll get our top two started in there. So, pull that bottom part down. It's kind of tight. I think what I'll do is actually thread that down into the plastic to get it. Maybe. There we go. Okay, now that those are all started, I'm going to flip it over. Get those all on.
Part of me wants to fix that, pulling down so much. We'll stretch it out. Never mind. All right. So everything's started. Try to get this to where you guys can see this. 8mm nut on the back, 3mm Allen on the front. We're just going to tighten these down. Now that that's on, you can take your plate, backing plate, license plate, backing plate. Peel that off, and we'll go ahead and get washers on the 4 remaining bolts. Grab your new license plate because your bike's going to be street legal now. And we'll just start with 2 at the beginning. Get your bolt started through. So this can be kind of a pain to pull and mount. Okay, now we got them all started. And we'll just go ahead and tighten it all up. Again with these, just make sure they're tightened to where they're going through the nylock part of the nut. Alright. Let's it move around instead of hard mounting to it. So now we're going to put this onto the bike and hook up our blinkers. So you're going to want to take your turn signal wires, feed them down through the hole for the wiring and the fender. Take your underfender. Kind of do the same thing. Take your tail light plug up. So get that started. What I'm not trying to do anything that requires 4 arms, we'll slide the fender on, hold it in place, and grab some hardware that's going to come with your kit. These are the 2 plastic screws that go right here to the tabs on the underside of your new XCW fender that comes in the kit. 6 mil. Before we start this, take your tail light, or excuse me, your turn signal connectors. So, the rule, red is not right. Plug the red into the signal marked L. Plug your green for your right signal. Now I'm going to take these wires, leave a little bit of room so these can sit in here. We're going to tuck that back. There's a little clip right there. That'll hold those wires in. Those will tuck back like that. On top of that, we'll push down your tail light wire underneath that clip. It'll stay. There we go. Like that. Before we slide this under fender up into place, guide your wires in. And then these grooves where these bushings go into. On each side. And then slide your fender up into place. Take one here. Get it started. 6 mil. Thought I had it started anyway. This left hand is not helping me. Alright. So we're going to route all our wires now. Make sure those are out of the way. Get your sub-fender up. Hold it there. Bolt started. Plastic threads, so don't go crazy. Okay. So now's the time to make sure the wires are clear and good. When you're doing this at the beginning, don't start these upper bolts before you get these ones in through the sub fender. If you do with a brand new fender, it's a real pain to get these side ones lined up, and these can be a pain anyways. So I like to look from the top. That's good. bolts. Now that we got the 2 lower bolts going, the sub fender bolted up, it's sturdy, we can do the forward fender mounting bolts. Hook up your tail light. Okay, so the last thing you're going to need to do to hook up the harness, take your wires right there. Yeah, you can just run a zip tie around this stuff, keep it out of the way if you'd like. Same with your relay, you can do 1 zip tie for it all. Let me throw one on there real quick. You can just run a zip tie around this zip tied. Keep it out of the way if you'd like. Good to go. Same with your relay, you can do 1 zip tie for it all. Throw one on there real quick. Alright, so the last piece of this kit is mounting the horn. On these horns, you'll need to break the back nut free, pivot it. So when you're looking from the back, these are coming off to your left. And then tighten that back up. Now, if you're mounting these without radiator guards, mount it to the upper radiator shroud bolt right there. You want to make sure this wire is out of the way right here, the horn wire, so it doesn't get pinched in between here and here. So this one with these guards, I'll just put a zip tie around the guard, but we don't need to do that on the video. So on the Bulletproof Designs guards, I like to use this upper mounting hole that doesn't have to do with the shrouds, right there. It's already threaded for an M8 bolt. And we'll mount that horn just like so. And take it and bend it out on the bracket just a touch so it's not rattling. We'll hook up our wires. It does not matter which wire goes to what on the horn. Plug those in. Okay. Put a zip tie around your guard. On the XCW models, you'll have wiring that runs on this side. You can zip tie it there. Just make sure that this wire stays out of the way of getting pinched right here. That way you don't disconnect your horn. Stator install on this bike to be able to run the high output Baja Designs headlight. Alright guys, so we are pretty much completed with the first step of building out this 2021 450 XCF. We installed our Option 2 harness. To clarify what the Option 2 harness is, it is our relayed harness for bikes that did not come with lights that will allow you to hook up the turn signal, give you a brake pressure switch, and add a multifunction switch to the handlebars for horn, high-low, and the turn signal function. The Option 1 harness is just going to come with a tail light and hookup and a headlight hookup, not a high-low beam and not a brake light. Super happy with how it turned out. Big thanks to all the companies that gave us products for this bike. SXS slide plates, Fusion Graphics, Motominded, Fastway. There's a lot out there. I'm probably missing some right now, but we'll go over it again. Motorsports of Olympia, of course. They're always really good at supporting us as well. Appreciate you guys watching and checking it out.